Look around you. The people you trust the most, the ones you call friends, might stand beside you now, but will they still be there when everything falls apart? Life has a brutal way of revealing the truth. No one owes you loyalty, no one owes you understanding, and no one is coming to save you. Sooner you accept this, the stronger you become, because the moment you stop expecting support is the moment you start building unshakable self-reliance. The greatest illusion people carry is the belief that someone outside of themselves will come to save them, guide them, or give them clarity. They search endlessly for answers in the voices of others, in books, in motivational words, or in relationships. But the reality is much simpler and much more difficult to accept. The answers lie within, and the inner self must be trained and shaped into a reliable ally. Until the mind becomes disciplined, it is not a companion but an obstacle. An undisciplined mind is chaotic, restless, and easily swayed by external circumstances. It reacts to life instead of responding with clarity. And because of this, many suffer unnecessarily, not from what happens in life, but from the undirected energy of their own thinking. A disciplined mind does not arise by chance. It is forged through awareness, repetition, and a commitment to self-mastery. Without discipline, the mind wanders. It clings to the past, worries about the future, and becomes enslaved by emotion. It becomes weak in the face of uncertainty and collapses under pressure. Most people live at the mercy of their thoughts, not realizing they have never taken the time to govern them. The undisciplined mind searches for comfort, avoids discomfort, and constantly seeks stimulation. It cannot sit still, nor can it observe calmly. It demands attention, approval, and distraction, and yet, this is the very mind people hope will guide them through life. To train the inner self is to turn inward with honesty. It is to examine your thoughts, your fears, your assumptions, and your reactions. It is to ask, without fear or denial, is this way of thinking helping me? Most never ask that question. They assume their thoughts are facts and their emotions are truth. But emotions come and go. They rise and fall like waves. If your stability depends on them, you will be tossed around endlessly. A disciplined mind observes emotions, acknowledges them, but is not controlled by them. It does not suppress feelings, but does not surrender to them either. It allows space between stimulus and response, and in that space, wisdom is born. Training the mind is no different than training the body. It requires consistency, effort, and deliberate practice. Just as muscle grows through resistance, the mind strengthens through discipline. Waking up at a set time, maintaining focus on a single task, keeping promises to yourself, regulating your thoughts, observing your impulses. All these are forms of mental training. And like physical training, it is not glamorous, it is often uncomfortable. It demands that you sit with boredom, with frustration, with silence. But in this discomfort, you develop control. Once the mind is trained, it becomes your most reliable companion. You no longer need to chase approval or escape into distraction. You no longer fear being alone because your own presence is enough. You are able to face challenges with stillness instead of panic. Your energy is not scattered by every negative comment, every temporary setback, or every shifting opinion. You begin to move through the world with intention instead of reaction. You become less dependent on the behavior of others because your inner world is stable. When the outside world is chaotic, you remain calm, not because the storm has stopped, but because your mind is no longer moved by every gust of wind. Most people invest more time in shaping their appearance than their character. They seek to look strong instead of becoming strong. But a trained mind cannot be seen, it is felt. It reveals itself in how you respond under pressure, how you handle discomfort, how you speak when angered, and how you act when no one is watching. A person with a trained mind does not need to announce it. Their presence alone carries quiet strength. They do not overreact. They do not need to dominate. They do not seek to impress. They are centered. When the mind becomes your ally, solitude is no longer threatening. You begin to enjoy silence. You begin to seek simplicity. You no longer fill your life with noise to avoid yourself. You face your thoughts directly and begin to shape them. You learn to replace fear with clarity, doubt with determination, and impatience with discipline. You begin to recognize patterns in your behavior. You notice what triggers you, what distracts you, and what strengthens you. And with this awareness comes choice, the ability to respond rather than react. One of the greatest dangers of an undisciplined mind is that it becomes easily influenced by the opinions of others. Without a stable center, every voice pulls you in a different direction. You lose your sense of who you are because your identity is shaped by the approval of others. But when the mind is trained, you begin to live from the inside out, not the outside in. You develop your own standards, your own values, and your own path. You listen to others, but you are not controlled by them. You learn to take what is useful and discard what is not. You no longer fear judgment because you are no longer seeking acceptance. True confidence does not come from praise. It comes from knowing that your mind is prepared. When you have faced yourself, your weaknesses, your insecurities, your darkness, you no longer fear what others may see. You have already seen it, and because you have seen it and worked through it, you are no longer ashamed. You carry yourself with quiet assurance because you know what you have built within, and what you have built cannot be taken away. The path to a disciplined mind requires structure. It requires stillness. It requires rituals and routines that remind you daily of your values. It requires that you guard your attention as if it were your most precious resource, because it is. Whatever you give your attention to shapes your mind. If you constantly fill your mind with noise, comparison, and stimulation, you weaken your ability to focus and reflect. But if you fill your mind with purposeful thoughts, silence, and discipline, you strengthen it. Training the mind also requires humility. It demands that you admit what you do not know and that you recognize your own patterns of avoidance. It is easy to say, "I want peace," but difficult to admit that your current way of thinking is the reason you do not have it. The ego resists this. It wants to be right, but growth requires surrendering the need to be right in order to become whole. A disciplined mind brings consistency, and consistency builds power. When you show up for yourself daily, even in small ways, you begin to trust yourself, and self-trust is the foundation of freedom. It means you no longer have to wait for motivation or depend on ideal conditions. You act because that is who you have become. Your actions are not reactive. They are rooted in your principles. In a world that constantly tries to pull your attention in 1,000 directions, a disciplined mind is a rarity. It is quiet, it is focused, and it is unwavering. It does not seek applause, it does not need recognition. It simply does what must be done over and over until excellence becomes a habit. And when that habit is formed, the mind becomes your greatest ally, not because it is perfect, but because it is under your direction. Most suffering in life is not caused by what happens, but by the expectations we carry. The human mind is conditioned to project, to assume, to imagine how things should be, and then becomes distressed when reality does not match those expectations. People expect loyalty from others, kindness in return for kindness, appreciation for effort, fairness from the world, and understanding during their struggles. And yet, the world does not function according to personal expectations. It moves on its own terms. The more tightly a person clings to how things should be, the more pain they experience when things simply are. Expectations are subtle chains. They tie your peace to something outside of your control. You expect someone to support you, and when they don't, you feel betrayed. You expect life to be fair, and when it isn't, you feel defeated. But fairness is not guaranteed, and support is not owed. Everything in this world is temporary and unpredictable. To find peace, one must remove the condition of expectation and replace it with acceptance. This does not mean surrendering to injustice or becoming passive. It means recognizing that suffering often comes not from the event itself, but from resisting what is. Mind creates pictures of how relationships should be, how success should arrive, how people should act. But these pictures are not reality, they are projections. When people fall short of the roles we assign them in our minds, we feel disappointment. But the fault lies not in them, but in the image we created. To expect others to think like you, feel like you, or prioritize your needs is to set yourself up for repeated frustration. People live in their own worlds, shaped by their own experiences and desires. They are not here to fulfill your vision of how life should unfold. Releasing expectation is not about lowering standards. It is about freeing yourself from emotional dependence. You can still aim for excellence, still treat others with kindness, still pursue your goals with passion, but you do it because it is who you are, not because you expect a particular reward. When you give without expectation, you act from clarity. You are no longer trapped in the cycle of disappointment and resentment. Your actions become clean, your mind becomes light, and your heart remains untangled. To accept everything does not mean liking everything. It means seeing things clearly without resistance. It means understanding that life brings joy and pain, gain and loss, praise and criticism. These opposites are not enemies, they are teachers. When you expect only comfort, you reject half of life. But when you accept all of it, you become stable. You stop reacting emotionally to every change and begin observing with a deeper intelligence. This intelligence is what guides wise action, not impulsive reaction. Attachment to how things were or how things should be keeps the mind trapped in suffering. Life is movement. It does not pause for your plans. Relationships change. Circumstances evolve. People grow in different directions. If you cling to the way something used to be, you will be in constant conflict with the present. Acceptance allows you to adjust. It allows you to move with life instead of resisting it. And in this movement, there is peace. Many expect recognition for their efforts. They want others to notice how hard they work, how much they give, how deeply they care. But recognition is never guaranteed. There will be times when your efforts are unseen, your sacrifices unacknowledged, your discipline unnoticed. If you are working only for approval, you will feel empty. But if you are working from purpose, you will feel fulfilled regardless of external praise. Purpose-driven action does not need applause. It is rooted in internal conviction, not public validation. The habit of expectation also weakens relationships. When you expect others to act according to your needs, you put pressure on them. You stop seeing them as individuals and start seeing them as roles to be played. This creates tension, disappointment, and conflict. But when you let go of these expectations, you begin to see people more clearly. You accept them and they are not as you want them to be. This acceptance creates space for real connection, for honest communication, and for mutual respect. Expect nothing, not because you are pessimistic, but because you understand impermanence. Every moment is new. Every person is changing. You can never fully predict what someone will say or do. To hold expectations is to hold a rigid image in a world that is fluid. When you expect less, you suffer less. You are not caught off guard by change. You do not feel entitled to anything. And because of this, everything that does come your way, kindness, love, support, is received with gratitude, not entitlement. Letting go of expectation also strengthens inner discipline. It teaches you to act regardless of outcome. You no longer need ideal conditions to begin. You no longer wait for motivation or encouragement. You do what must be done, not because someone is watching or because you are promised a reward, but because it aligns with your principles. This is true strength, not to act when everything is perfect, but to act when nothing is guaranteed. To live with acceptance is to live in alignment with reality. You stop forcing life to fit your mold and start adapting with intelligence. This does not mean passivity. It means choosing your response wisely. Instead of saying, "This shouldn't be happening," you ask, "Now that it is happening, how will I respond?" This shift removes resistance and replaces it with clarity, and from clarity comes effective action. People often fear acceptance because they confuse it with weakness. They think if they accept things, they will stop improving them, but the opposite is true. Acceptance is the first step to real change. You cannot shift what you do not first acknowledge. When you accept a situation, you see it fully. And when you see it fully, you know exactly what must be done. Denial distorts perception. Expectation creates illusion. Acceptance clears the mind. Expectations are a form of control. Our attempts to shape outcomes, to predict behavior, to secure comfort. But control is a myth. You cannot control the minds of others, the flow of time, or the unfolding of every event. The more you try, the more exhausted you become. But when you accept that you do not control everything, you free yourself. You begin to act without force, to move without fear, to give without demand. And in this freedom, you find peace. Not because the world changed, but because you changed your relationship with it. There is great power in expecting nothing and accepting everything. It makes you resilient in a world that is unpredictable. It makes you calm in the face of change. It allows you to engage with life fully without being crushed by it. You become less reactive, more grounded, more intentional. Your energy is no longer wasted on trying to bend reality. It is directed toward growth, presence, and meaningful action. From this state of being, life becomes lighter. You carry less mental weight. You experience more gratitude, and even in the midst of difficulty, you remain rooted. Many people misunderstand the idea of walking alone. They think it means isolation, coldness, or arrogance. But to walk alone is not to reject others. It is to understand that your path is uniquely yours. It is to recognize that the deepest decisions, the most transformative choices, and the clearest insights must come from within. No one can walk your inner path for you. Others may walk beside you. For a time, they may offer support, guidance, or distraction. But eventually, every human being arrives at a point where they must choose to stand alone in their clarity, their discipline, and their purpose. To walk alone is to realize that waiting for others to understand your vision is a form of delay. You may hope that friends or family will support you, that they will see what you see, believe in what you believe, but the reality is that your inner calling is yours alone. It was not given to others, so it is not their responsibility to validate it. Many dreams are delayed or destroyed, not by failure, but by the desire for agreement. A person with a strong sense of direction must learn to act without consensus. It is not arrogance to trust your inner compass, it is wisdom. The moment you begin to prioritize inner alignment over outer approval, you begin to walk alone. This solitude is not punishment, it is preparation. Walking alone strips away the noise. It confronts you with your thoughts, your fears, your habits. It forces you to take responsibility. When there is no one to blame, no one to distract you, no one to rely on, you must face yourself. In that confrontation, growth becomes inevitable. You learn how to stay calm in discomfort. You learn how to endure silence. You learn how to trust your inner voice, even when it's the only voice speaking. And eventually, that voice becomes steady. It no longer wavers with doubt or fear. It becomes your guide, your friend, and your strength. When people avoid solitude, they usually do so out of fear. Not fear of being physically alone, but fear of being alone with their thoughts. In constant company, one can avoid the deeper questions, but solitude brings those questions to the surface. Who am I without others? What do I truly value? What do I believe when no one else is influencing me? These are difficult questions, but they are necessary ones. Only in solitude can you peel back the layers that were shaped by family, society, and expectation. Only alone can you find what is truly yours. There is also freedom in walking alone. You are not bound by the expectations of others. You are not held back by their limitations or slowed by their doubts. You move at your own pace. You make decisions quickly, not because you are rushing, but because you are clear. Your energy is not diluted in negotiation or explanation, it is focused. You build momentum. You become more productive, more efficient, and more disciplined. Every step you take comes from inner conviction, not external pressure, and this independence strengthens you. At first, it is uncomfortable. Most are not used to making choices without input. They fear making mistakes, being judged, or being misunderstood. But mistakes are not the enemy. In fact, they are the most powerful teachers. When you make decisions alone, you learn quickly. You see what works and what doesn't. You adjust. You become sharper. Over time, your ability to discern strengthens. Your instincts become more accurate. You stop needing reassurance. You begin to enjoy your own company. you begin to understand that solitude is not loneliness, it is mastery. To walk alone is also to release the need for constant validation. Many people unconsciously act for applause. They do what others admire, not what truly matters. But applause fades, trends change, opinions shift. If your direction is tied to praise, you will constantly change course and you will never feel steady. But when you no longer seek to be liked, you begin to act from truth. You speak with integrity. You stand firm in your values. You become consistent even when it's unpopular. And people respect consistency even if they don't understand it. One of the hardest parts of walking alone is outgrowing relationships. As you grow, you may find that some people no longer understand you. They may resist your growth, question your decisions, or try to pull you back to who you were. This is normal. Growth can be uncomfortable to witness. It challenges others to reflect on their own path. Some will not be ready for that reflection, and so part of walking alone is learning to let go with love but without regret. You are not abandoning others. You are choosing alignment over attachment. You are choosing depth over comfort. There will also be moments of doubt, moments when the path seems unclear, when the silence feels heavy, when the world seems indifferent. But those moments are not signs to turn back. They are tests. Can you stay the course when no one is watching? Can you continue to rise when there is no recognition? Can you live according to your principles even in silence? These are the tests that shape character. They are the forge where true discipline is formed. Eventually, walking alone becomes your default, not because you reject connection, but because you no longer depend on it. You are no longer afraid of being alone because you are no longer afraid of yourself. You carry your purpose quietly with no need to announce it. You move through life with calm focus. You begin to notice that while others chase attention, you are cultivating substance. While others seek distraction, you are building depth. And in that depth, there is peace. There is also clarity. When you walk alone, you see more clearly. You are not caught in groupthink. You are not swayed by fleeting trends. You think for yourself. You decide for yourself. You move for yourself. This does not mean selfishness. It means sovereignty. You know who you are. You know where you are going. And you are willing to go there, even if it means walking alone. Over time, solitude becomes strength. It becomes your place of clarity, your space of restoration. You begin to seek it, not avoid it. You begin to create boundaries around it, not apologize for it. And as your strength grows, you become someone others look to, not because you sought to lead them, but because you mastered yourself. You do not need followers, you need direction. And when your direction is clear, others may choose to walk with you, but whether they do or not, your journey continues. Walking alone is not about being untouched by life. It is about being unshaken by it. You will still feel, still connect, still care, but your center remains within. You are no longer pulled by every current. You are no longer lost when others leave. You are grounded. You are focused. You are at peace. The path may be narrow, but it is yours, and that is more than enough.